are here to spill the tea with Amy Turner and her new book, Voyage of the Pleiades. And we are so excited to talk to her about this book because, as you folks know, I love historical fiction, and she absolutely nailed it with this first foray into writing and books. I'm so excited that you're doing this because you nailed it with
Oh, thank you.
setting, plot, romance, everything that, in my mind, historical fiction should have. So, why don't you share? Because I don't like to reveal spoilers. So, what? Tell us about the book.
Okay, so the book starts in the late 1800s, 1885, and Linnea, our main character, Linnea Wren, is a botanist and naturalist, and the book is really about her journey from finding her way back into her career after a pretty major shipwreck, and she takes a voyage from England to South America, to Chiloé Island, which is just off the coast of Chile. And it's about the voyage. It's about plans, and there's a murder mystery. We've got a pretty intense murder mystery that's also overlaid, and we get to learn a lot about the culture of Chile as well as meeting her partner Mateus, who's also a naturalist, who's part of the journey and is also on some explorations of his own. So yeah, we'll sum it up that way.
There you go. So, so what was the inspiration
Mm.
for this book?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of historical fiction. I'm a big reader in general. I read across genres. I read a lot of books in a year, and I've been writing for most of my life. But I came to fiction pretty late. I've written a lot of creative nonfiction, and I always wanted a story about women naturalists. You know, we know they're there, we know a little bit about their stories, but the thing that I've always been really hungry with for my historical fiction is I wanted something set in South America because we don't hear about that setting very much
Mhm.
in the 19th century. And I really wanted something that was grounded in this natural history exploration from a women's perspective. And I traveled to Chile several times. I really love it. There's something about that country that just really spoke to me. And I spent quite a bit of time on Chiloé Island. And Chiloé is so rich in their own mythological like history. I mean, the stories there are just in every part of the landscape or in every part of
Mhm.
people's daily lives. So I came back from that trip in, I guess it was 2016. And there was just something there, you know, like I had been taking notes when I was there, and there was just a little bit of a spark of a story that I wanted to set in Chile. And then I just sat down and this character came. Like Linnea just kind of came as a character for me. She's a, you know, I just kind of knew who I wanted to put there and how I wanted to craft the story. And so I started writing it in 2018 was how I came to the book originally. And then it took, you know, 5 years from writing until publication. So that's, which is not that unusual with, especially with the amount of research I
No.
put into this book. There's a lot of research, which is kind of my favorite part of writing historical fiction. I love going deep into the research. So yeah.
Well, that's, as like I said, somebody who reads a ton of historical fiction, that is so evident. And that's almost, I mean, I love the stories, but I love to then read the end when you guys talk about what you did, or to talk to you
Hmm.
about that research part, because that to me is absolutely fascinating. Just all the stuff that you dig, and then to compile that
Hmm.
into the story, the details, not only your setting,
Hmm.
um, those cultural, mythological beliefs that they have, weaving that in, and even 18th century norms.
Yeah.
My favorite, and I will let people know this, my favorite part of your writing is your use of the language as they spoke it back then.
Mm.
And I always like sit back and I'm like, I wish we had this rich use of the English language like they did. How did you I mean, is it just from your extensive reading that you felt, or did you have to also, was that a lot of research?
It's a lot of me. Like that's just how
I love
it's
that.
actually funny you say that because, you know, of course, I worked with an editor. I'm an editor. And so, of course, I immediately got a developmental editor and a copy editor, and I have a sensitivity reader because I do navigate a lot of sensitive issues with cultural stuff in South America
Uh-huh.
and race. And I wanted to make sure I did that in a way that felt my master's degree is in anthropology, it's in ethnobotany. So it was really important to me to feel like I was not representing things incorrectly or in a way
Uh-huh.
that wasn't sensitive. But to go back to the language, she came back to me after the one of the first drafts and was like, "You got to tone it down. Like people don't talk like this." And I did a little bit, but I didn't too much because I felt like it was sacrificing my voice and Linnea's voice. Like
Yeah,
that's the main.
that was
Yeah,
that was the part of Linnea that I absolutely loved, and her way of self-medicating.
yeah.
She
Nothing a
was
little whiskey won't fix.
That's exactly. She was so she was very feminine,
Mhm,
but not, and
mhm.
strong, and such a fun character to go along for a ride with. I mean,
Uh,
she was adorable.
she's fun. She's fun to write. You know, I've finished the second book. I'm revising it now, the
We're
sequel.
going to talk about that.
Yeah, and you know, she's got lots to say. Like she's got lots more adventures, and it was one of the things that kept me going through this book is that yeah, her sense of how she interacts with the world. And like you said, she's feminine, but she's not she's had to be very masculine in many ways to like have the career that she's had. That was not, and you know, she is mirrored on women that actually existed during that time. I mean, she's not so much of a leap into the modern in terms of what women were doing during that time. There were women doing this. They
Right.
just, we just don't talk about them. We don't know a lot about their stories. But yeah, she had to present herself a certain way in order to make it as far as she has. So, you know, like it's, and that was scaling back some of the things that we would traditionally call feminine in order to like prove that you know she was a good scientist, she could do all these things that she was expected to do as an expedition leader. So
Yes.
um, yeah, I had to.
But she knew how to play her cards, like when she had to wear her nice dress and,
Yeah,
with her
yeah,
little bit of cleavage showing, she's like, well,
exactly. Like she knows how she has to get her funding. Like she has to play to the right audience, and so she's very strategic in everything she does. You know, she thinks very thoroughly in how she's going to approach a problem. And I think that's one of the interesting transformations she has in the book is she finds she's having to rely more on her intuition than she's ever relied on before because she's in these unusual situations that are really challenging her. And that's one of my favorite developments of her throughout the book is watching her having to put aside that analytical mind a bit to try and figure out how to navigate how her life is changing. You know, with her relationships, with the
That's where I was going to segue. Yes. So talk a little bit about that, because not only is the transformation in her, because this is all first person,
Mhm.
but um, you do, I mean, Mateus is so much a part of that. And
Mhm.
he's a wonderful character in that respect. So tell us a little bit about where you were going with that.
Ah, well, I mean, Mateus is going through his own experiences and transformation, and that is interesting. You know, since I wrote it in first person, we're experiencing what's happening with him through her perceptions. So it's all kind of secondhand. So making
Mhm.
sure that we could see his development too. But Linnea needed a strong partner. Like if she was going to go down this road of thinking about a relationship, it had to be someone that could be her equal and also bring something to the table that she doesn't have. And Mateus absolutely does that. You know, like
Yes.
he's very capable. He's lived, they have a lot of similarities in how their lives have gone, but they've also had very different experiences. And he treats her like an equal. He doesn't,
Yes.
even though she actually is his boss, like he
Yes.
also doesn't, you know, there's not any meaning between either of them. Like they just from the beginning treat themselves very equally. And she's very respectful of the journey that he's on. And he knows how to give her space, which she needs to have. And I think I wanted her to have, if she was going to have a romance interest, it needed to be somebody who's going to keep her attention, right? Because she's kind of she's a dynamic person, and so it needed to be somebody that was going to meet her and be able to keep her engaged with like wanting to be in a relationship because her
Yes.
career's been everything. She's given up everything for her career. So to have a partner in this, they had to actually like be on the same level and know how to do this. So yeah.
Well, and their relationship, and this I think is one of those things that if somebody does it well, it's phenomenal, but it seems to be a hard thing to do, is that natural build
Hmm.
where you're feeling it
Hmm.
as their relationship is developing. And it was there for
Oh,
sure. There were times I'm like, no, and I'm thinking, she's got me. She got me. Because,
I don't know about
I
you,
read,
but like with historical fiction, I love the build, but I don't like when it's too long. You know what I mean? Like I can't handle
yes,
it when the build is over like 3 or 4 books. Like as much as I love that and I love the character development and the tension that can happen, I knew I wanted the build in this book. I was like, no, I'm gonna leave my readers satisfied at the end that they at least know.
thank you.
Yeah, like I don't want to like I don't want it to build and then like we're gonna cut the book off and you have to wait. Like I couldn't
Yeah,
do that.
no,
I
no.
couldn't do
And,
it.
and and I like it that it's a them against something, not them constantly doing stuff that causes tension between them. That drives me absolutely bonkers.
Same,
I want them to be
same.
on the same team. Oh, good.
I
You
want
and
more
I are.
dimensionality to it. Like I want give me some
Yes,
dimensionality. Like it can't always because that's not how we are when we're developing a relationship, right? It's not always
right,
just us against we have all these other things around us that are impacting, and especially these two. Like they're
yes,
on a trip. They have pressures on them for what they're supposed to be accomplishing because people have given them money to go on this expedition, like so they
right,
have those responsibilities. The murders are happening. So they have this responsibility that innocent people are dying and they need to figure out what the heck is going on. And
right,
I wanted I wanted the tension to be external too, like, pushing them to deal with issues that they have between each other, but not making it just about them. Like it needed to be
right,
more than that. Yeah.
right. So one of the things that we always love is just to learn about our authors too. You have a fascinating story, I think. So, 20 plus years off grid in Alaska, and now
Yeah.
you're in Salida.
Yeah. No, I'm in Salida. Yeah. It's yeah, it's been a journey. I grew up in Colorado and left, when a lot of people leave to go to college. And after college, I had a job in the remote part of Alaska and really fell in love with it and decided to go back and make my home there. So yeah, I lived more than 20 years in a little log cabin, 400 square foot with my partner. I do have a partner. We lived in that cabin together, like off grid on 12 acres. I worked full time for a private consulting company. So I commuted, into town, into Fairbanks. And yeah, we had only solar power, no running water, just we held water, outhouse. Yeah, we did it all.
That
And then
is amazing.
yeah.
So
It's
what brought you back to Colorado?
so I decided to write full time.
Um,
I decided that I was done doing the corporate world. I was pretty burnt out from it and I've always wanted to write, and I had been writing this book while I was working part time, 40 50 hours a week, and then coming home and working on the book. And I just decided it was a point in my life. I'd lost some close people to me and I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait until another 10 or 15 years for retirement. I'm in my late 40s and I don't have kids. And those were all, it was like, this is my chance. This is a time to like
mhm.
really put it all in and go full on this book. So I quit my job. It took me about 8 months to pry myself out of that position. And then we left to come down to Colorado to visit family. We left Alaska. And I had no intention of moving to Colorado at that point. I thought I was going to be back in Alaska in 2 months. And this was fall of 2019. So you can kind of imagine what happened. Like we stayed down here for a
Yep.
few months. I worked on the book. COVID happened. I was editing the book during COVID. I had already finished it. I finished a draft just before COVID started. And, our family was here. We have elderly family members, and one of them was diagnosed with cancer during COVID. And so it just kind of
One thing after
snowballed.
another.
And we had talked for years about being back here. And I said Salida would be the only place that I would live if we came back to Colorado. So when we decided to stay, it was just kind of natural to stay here. And now I'm so happy I'm here. I mean, I was kind of ready to leave Alaska. Um, it's a lot of work. And I don't think I realized how much work it was until I
Until you don't do it anymore.
yeah, I mean, living in an off-grid cabin and having a demanding full-time job and writing a book, like that was a lot. It was a lot on my plate. So we still own our place in Alaska. We still have it. I don't know that we'll ever go back to live at it full time, but yeah, it was just a
Go
lot.
visit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my partner runs a guide business and he's back and forth to Alaska all the time, so he stays in it when he's back up. But it was um it was time. It was time to go. And it was kind of fun to be back in Colorado while I was finishing this book because this is the landscape I'm really grounded in. And so it just felt very natural to like kind of be back in my homelands while I was wrapping this
It's
project up.
gorgeous. Like I said, yeah, I mean, we were just in
Yeah, you were
Leadville and
just
it's
there. Like
yeah, it is. It's stunning. If anybody has never been to, high altitude
Southern
mountains,
Colorado, high desert.
you
Yeah.
need to high desert. It's just amazing. And the skies and the weather and
Yeah.
I could go on. But I want to get in. So you said, gave a little teaser, there is more to Linnea and Matthias's story. What can you tell us about that, and when can we expect to hear that?
The next book. I'm planning to have it out next June. It should come out about a year from the same release date from Voyage of the Pleiades. It's set in Spain, and Linnea has a position at the Alhambra, which is pretty amazing. And it is another murder mystery, and they will be there together. For those of you that read this book, Hugh, who is the character at the beginning, will be completely in the second book. He comes back. We get to know him
Good. We
better as
love
a
Hugh.
character. Mhm. We get to spend a lot more time with him in the second book. So, and they're navigating how they go forward together, what it means to be partners for two people who've been independent their whole lives, like, um, and the murder
Yeah.
mystery is again grounded in the place that they're in. So we're in southern Spain for the whole thing. We're in Cadiz, and then we're in Granada for the second half of the book. So Linnea goes undercover. We get all kinds of different experiences with her in the second book.
Sweet.
Yeah.
This will be, like I said to those watching, this is really great historical fiction. So you definitely have set the bar high for book two, which I don't doubt. Just after reading, you've got it. I mean, with this is going to be a great series. Do you think that you want to expand into something else? Other, you said you like other genres. I mean, or do you think that historical fiction will be where you kind of go, or just where whatever the inspiration leads?
I mean, my other writing, I do some short fiction that's not historical already. I write that. I'm a script writer, so I actually write for documentaries. That's what I'm doing freelance when I'm not writing the books right
I
now.
actually, I actually stalked your website, and I was
Ah,
like, look at
you should watch the
you
Twin
do.
Lakes one because you were just up there. So we just got
Yes,
nominated for an Emmy for that Twin Lakes documentary this spring. And
really.
yeah, and it will look familiar to you after just being up there because it's all about the Twin Lakes area. So I do get to put my fingers in other pools of writing through that. I really love writing historical fiction. It's just kind of it suits all the things I like. Like I love doing the
Yeah.
research. I mean, as you know from reading it, I'm a very I wouldn't say heavy, tedious description, but I definitely go in for the description of the landscapes. Like I want to ground my readers
Yes.
in the
Yes.
places that they're reading. I want them to know how it smells and what it feels like. And so it's important for me to write books in places that I've been. So South America, I not only because we don't see many books, historical fiction books set in
Mhm.
South America, but I really wanted people to have that experience. I mean, Chiloé is such a unique place, and because I had those experiences myself, I could draw on that to really frame out the description. And the same with Spain. So I've spent quite a bit of time in southern Spain. So again, it's drawing on my own perceptions and experiences to kind of fill that out. I know for sure there will be a third book, like just based on where I've ended the second one. I haven't decided for sure where I'm going to set it yet. There's a possibility it may be set in South Africa. I'm going to be back in South Africa this spring, and I love it. And again, it's not a place that we
Yeah.
read about a lot in historic fiction. And if there's anything I'm interested in doing, it's weaving these unusual locations into my writing because I think she would be going those places.
Hmm.
Naturalists didn't just go to like, like they were
Right.
all over the world. And I like people getting an insight into what was happening in those countries. We're so Eurocentric with our
Yep.
historic fiction, and I like kind of placing them in places where people understand what was happening there politically. And
Yes.
I mean, when they're in Spain, they're just like 6 years before the Spanish American War. So I mean, that's being able to put people on a timeline that changes things about how they think about what was happening in the world at the time is
Oh
important.
yeah. Well,
So
and that's why we love to read because
yeah,
we like to go places and experience things that number one we couldn't because if it's a different time,
right.
but even just places in the world being able to, see things that you've gone to see that I haven't had the opportunity to yet,
Yeah,
potentially.
yeah.
But yeah, that's to me another aspect when you get into involved in a series that you're like it's going to open doors to places and
Yeah, I mean, it was
experiences.
natural. At the end of this book, I was like, oh, I know I'm going to Spain for the next one. And the second book is done, but with the revision process, I'm sure the ending will change until I'm satisfied with it. And let me tell you, as an editor, it takes me a lot to I'm pretty picky about my about what I'm doing. So I'm sure at the end of this one, I will have a clear vision for where the third one will be. I've already kind of
Yeah, I mean, it is really well done. That editor, I know it makes it probably tedious for you as the author to be also that editor brain, but it ends up being a really great written finished product. So no complaints here.
Good, good. Yeah, it's hard to shut that part off sometimes. But again, like I said, that's why I have my own editor, because then I can shut that down and cut loose on the creativity. And I know she'll come through for me to make sure everything looks cleaned up at the end. So
Well, I'm sure we'll. Do you have a title yet?
yeah, A Garden of Shadows is gonna be the next one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's where I think we'll wind up because they definitely need to get this book. The review will now go up that we've got, so I can put in we got the interview, and I hope that the readers take a dive at this. This is really great historical fiction, and look forward to that next book and the opportunity someday to run across paths with you in person
Yeah.
because you are such a fascinating lady.
Oh, thank
Really,
you so much.
really. That doesn't is not a requirement to read somebody's book,
Right.
but it always is a lot of fun.
Well, and we're in all of our characters, so I guess you get a little bit of me of everybody who's in the book.
I wondered that, especially when some of her moments, I'm like, I wonder who's the inspiration. Is this Amy?
Yeah, well, I think with all writers of fiction, we exist in all of our characters. We're like a cast of them all,
Something.
so you get a little bit of me in all of them for sure.
Awesome. Well, Amy, thank you so much for doing this. I hope you'll, consider when the next book comes out, coming back on, and we'll
Definitely.
talk some more because, like I said, I'd love to talk to you about all the book stuff, but I don't want to spoil it for readers. So otherwise, I'd been picking your brain. We'd been talking the book.
Well, we can stay
But
and
it,
talk about the
exactly. Well,
book.
you have yourself a great day, and we will catch up with you later then.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Tanya.
Thanks, Amy.